accept that men are willing to be vulnerable. Not all of them, but when they are, even if they don't know exactly how to do it, but if they are coming to you and saying, I know you're suffering from menopause. I know these mood swings are part of the hormonal changes. I know that your dry vagina hurts when I try to have sex with you. How can we together find a way to actually make this fun and pleasurable for us? On Friday night, I co-hosted an event called Embracing Midlife Sexuality, and I was really pleasantly surprised to see the men in the audience. Not that there was ever any doubt that sexuality applied to both men and women, but what was really impressive was that these men were vulnerable in a space where there were women, and we were talking about subjects that people are often very ashamed to talk about. So it was really, really heartwarming to see this and to have this co-ed audience to talk about these subjects. And we talked about all kinds of things, menopause and erectile dysfunction and sexuality. And these men were really vulnerable and honest. And at some point, I said something to the effect of how it's so much easier for men. They can see a naked body and they get an erection right away. And one of the men, and I hope you're watching this, called me out on this. And he said, I need an emotional connection to get aroused. I'm not somebody that can just see something and get a hard on. And I love that he called me out on my shit, because that is exactly what I want to hear. I want everybody to be able to have these conversations. And I think that we underestimate male vulnerability, and maybe it's the audience that I attract that are willing and open to talk about these things. But I think it's really, really critical that we give men the same space that we are now starting to give women. And not that men have not had more privilege than us and the patriarchy and all that, and I don't want to go into that conversation. But I think what has been more and more surprising to me is hearing the stories from men, hearing the men that really do care about their female partners and what they're going through, and how they are feeling so paralyzed and trying to help these women because they won't talk, or because they're so afraid, or because they reject these men because of the physical changes and saying that they no longer want sex. And so what I'm trying to do is to really get these conversations started. And a piece that surprises me is that all the challenges that women face, all the fears that we face about aging and about the physical changes to our bodies are very similar to what men are facing. That men are also, when a man has ED, it's like his whole masculinity has been questioned. And the fact is that men, 40% of men in their 40s, 50 in their 50s, 60 in their 60s, etc., will get erectile dysfunction. So again, there should not be any shame with something like that, when the same way there should not be shame for women who are going through menopause to talk about the changes to their body. They are a fact. We are changing, we are aging, but the beauty of it is that once we have these conversations, it reduces the shame, and it becomes something that we are all can talk about, and it makes it so much better. And women who go through menopause, research has shown we have more of a I don't give a fuck attitude. I don't need to worry about raising my kids anymore. I don't need to worry about my body. I am who I am. This is what I look like, and this is who I'm going to be. And we need to embrace these men who are willing to be vulnerable and to be open and to say, I know that you are going through changes. How can I make it better? How can we improve our intimacy together so that we can have a better sex life? And the same with ED. Does sex always have to include an erect penis? There are so many other ways that we can really enjoy sex. I noticed last week there was somebody who was actually having National Soft Cock Week. And what can you do with a soft cock? Because, hey, we don't have to have penetrative sex all the time. We may like it and want it and hope for it, but it's not always that simple. I heard a story recently of a woman who, the first time she has had sex with a man after her divorce, he needed a penis pump or a penis enhancer to get ready for the exchange, or the event rather. And she was fine with it. She's like, hey, I haven't had sex in a long time. This could be fun. I know that I was with a guy who had issues with erectile dysfunction. He basically said, it doesn't always work the way I want. And I'm like, well, we can find ways to help it work, or we can find ways around it, because that is what we do in midlife. We change things up. We redefine what we always thought of as sex. And we also have to redefine how we look at aging. For women, that menopause is not a death knell. And for men, that being vulnerable and open, and that whole story that we were told that men have to be strong and have to provide and should never show emotion because that is a sign of weakness, that is bullshit. I think that is exactly what we need, that the more men express their fears and their shame and their desire to be in a good communicative partnership with us, however it works for both of you, it's okay. And that, like, these are bodily functions that will change over time. These are things that happen to everyone. Some people have it worse than others. Some people go through worse menopause symptoms than others, but we're all gonna have it. And I tell a story. I actually wrote a blog post about how I had a hot flash and an orgasm at the same time. And it was just like, whoa, this is great, but I gotta move and like cool myself off. And it was just a fact, and it became humorous. When you add the playfulness, when you make it just things that this happens, like, here's my array of vibrators, let's pick one and have some fun with it. Let's try different things. You try it, I try it. When we just make it, if you laugh about it and you enjoy it like you did when you were a kid, you like all the fun stuff, you didn't really think about all the consequences, you just had fun in the moment. And so we want to make sex fun. We don't want to make it a chore. We don't want it to be this thing we fear because it hurts, or we fear because we might not get an erection. There's so much more to our sexuality than just getting in bed and having penis and vagina orgasm sex. Like, that's what we did when we were young. Now we get to explore. We get to explore touch. We get to explore looking in someone's eyes. We get to explore new ways of doing it. We get to explore outside of our traditional relationship. There are so many things we can do to make our sex lives fun and to connect with our partners regardless of the challenges we're facing. So I am going to challenge you to talk to your partner about sex, because you will see with just a small little, like a little, entry into this conversation, that you can really change up your life. Accept that men are willing to be vulnerable. Not all of them, but when they are, even if they don't know exactly how to do it, but if they are coming to you and saying, I know you're suffering from menopause. I know these mood swings are part of the hormonal changes. I know that your dry vagina hurts when I try to have sex with you. How can we together find a way to actually make this fun and pleasurable for us? And you'll see that your life will really start to change. And I've just talked to someone who was telling me about how that has happened in her marriage, and how her husband has started, it's come to something where she talks about her love language being in acts of service, how she says, what act of service are you doing for me? Or so to something to that effect. And she knows that that's his way of saying, I want to get intimate with you. So I'm going to help you feel better about the intimacy so that we can do this together. And she does the same for him. And so it's this give and take. It's, yes, communication, but it's so important. But most importantly is have fun with it, right? So yeah, like, hey, my vagina's like the Sahara Desert today, so what are we going to do about it? Well, let's get a bottle of lube and make it more slippery. Or my penis is just not working today. All right, so let's start to play with other things with other parts of your body. Or let's play with me today, and we'll play with you tomorrow when it's working better. Let's find new ways to enjoy. Let's all be vulnerable, not just the ladies in the house, but the men too. And women, you need to accept when your male partner decides that he's going to be vulnerable. Do not push him away. Do not reject him. Do not make fun of him. Be open, because that is his way of trying to embrace you.